NASM has created the OPT model, which I primarily use in my training because I've seen a lot of success with it. And the OPT model, Optimal Performance Training Model, looks like this. A giant pyramid. The bottom is stability. So we'll explain each one as we go along. What stability is most people work in a stable environment. They are focused on sagittal movements, machines, just pushing like bench press or a seated shoulder press or just like leg press and stuff like that. And that's fine. That helps strengthen your muscles. The problem is your tendons and ligaments and stabilizers of every single joint are not really challenged so much so. And what happens is if you just focus on strength training, your primary movers get stronger, your stabilizers get weaker to the point where one day maybe you push a little bit too extra weight, your stabilizers fail, and you break something. Like the easiest way to explain it is your rotator cuff. And your rotator cuff is your four muscles that connect to your humerus. You have your subscapularis, supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and teres minor. Subscapularis does internal rotation. Your supraspinatus is abduction, and then your teres minor and infraspinatus is external rotation. Those muscles hold your humerus in place, and without them, you would not be able to move your arm. They're very small, they're very delicate, and they typically don't get worked on or even isolated with most people. So the whole point of stability training is to strengthen your stabilizers with your agonist or your primary mover. Okay? So stability training is to strengthen stabilizers. Now, you have stabilizers in every single joint of your body. Ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, your neck. Any of them can be weak, and which gives you it makes you more prone to injuries and or joint pain. And if you're looking from a performance enhancements angle, if you're in sports or you're an athlete, which is one of my certifications as performance enhancement specialist, you want to make sure that your stabilizers are equally strong as your primary movers, because you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? So you do a bench press, your subscapularis isn't strong as your pec. What happens? Not relative strength, but it can't handle what your pec can push. What happens? You tear your subscapularis, you tear your rotator cuff. Then you can't move your arm for 3 to 6 months, and that's a really hard injury to overcome. I pulled my rotator cuff not from working out, my subscapularis. I caught a basketball like this, pop, 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 pop. Someone threw it really hard, and I caught it like that, and I tore mine. I rehabbed mine. It took about 3 months. So I know all about pulling muscles, and from a sports injury. It's not fun. Don't do it because you're not going to be able to work out or utilize that joint for a while. Which I'll explain in a second. I know I'm going everywhere, but there's a phrase there's a principle called altered neuromuscular control, and what that means is when you have an injury, say for example you hurt your shoulder a little bit, not a lot, right? And you do a bench press, naturally what your body's going to do is deactivate a lot of the muscles in your pec. So the primary mover of bench press is your pec major, pec minor, stabilizer, or your secondary mover is your anterior deltoid, triceps. Stabilizers are your rotator cuff, right? So what happens is you hurt your right shoulder, and all those muscles don't fire as much because your brain says, hey, there's an injury here. So what ends up happening is you shift a lot more of your weight, a lot more of your energy to your left side. That's what we call altered neuromuscular control. And what ends up happening is now you're doing a bench press, but more on your left side. And that creates a muscle imbalance. So muscle imbalances can come from, practically anywhere. And the whole idea is to know that if you have one and to make sure they don't get worse. All right, so that's what alternate muscle control is. All right, so first phase of training is corrective exercise training. That is correcting your muscle imbalances. If you can't move properly, if you can't just in the basic movements, you have no right to push heavy weights. Just because you're going to tear something, you're going to break something, you're going to recreate bad muscle imbalances, stimulate the cumulative injury cycle, which causes another muscle imbalance, and then bam, you're just a walking mess. So take care of your muscle imbalances first. Of course, you can lose weight, which has nothing to do with this. Of course, you can get stronger, but this is the principle. This is the base. This is the foundation. This is where everyone should start. Make sure that they are building upon a body with a solid foundation. That's kind of what this is. We're trying to create a foundation for you, so that way you're not building upon muscle imbalances, which then causes more and more and more. Right. Next phase of training is integrated stabilization training. Same idea as the strength and stabilizers. It's more just balance training. You have your two systems of your core. You have your strength system of your core, and you have your stabilization system of your core. Stabilization system kind of just holds your spine in place. Your strength system moves your spine left to right on all three planes of motion: frontal, transverse, and sagittal plane of motion. So it's important to have both systems of your core strong. Otherwise, you have higher chance of bulging discs and other types of lower back pain just because your core is weak. All right, next phase is strength training. This is where most people hang out here. Strength training, you see most people at the gym, just stable in a stable environment, lifting weights, and that's fine. But a lot of them have muscle imbalances that they don't know, and that causes injuries, that causes joint pain. I can't tell you how many people I've seen at the gym. I used to work for a large corporate gym for a couple years, and I was a manager there. And it was my job to train trainers and to oversee clients and make sure that everyone was working out, hopefully okay. And I can't tell you how many people I've seen and still do see to this day use horrible form. And they might not feel the pain right now, but over time, it creeps up. It will come to get you. In the sense of not even a pulled muscle, but you might be wearing down your cartilage in your joints, and not now, but down the line, you might need a replacement of a joint because of excessive, improper form with excessive weight. The worst thing you can do with your body is have a muscle imbalance, but hyperflex a joint and or hyperextend a joint under extreme tension. I blew up my knees playing ice hockey for, again, 10 years. I wore out a lot of my cartilage because I did not take care of my joints with the knowledge that I have today because I didn't know. But I rehabbed my knees, and that's because I was hyperflexing my knee. I was always being hit. I was always falling to the ground, and I was sprinting from a position from the floor. And my knee was hyperflexed, and my joints couldn't handle it. So a lot of movements that people you see at the gym do full range of motion. That's fine if they're playing for a sport, or if it's like the activity is to do full range of motion. But if you're doing full range of motion with excessive weight and you have a muscle imbalance, it's a recipe for disaster. I've gotten a lot of clients from CrossFit have injured themselves because there's no form control, there's no proper progressions. People are just thrown there without knowing what they're doing. Unfortunately, that's just what it is. And I've actually had to rehab their backs, their shoulders, their knees, because there is no form control. And that's a problem with group classes, especially ones that are intense, like lifting heavy weight. Is that the form is usually wrong, and when you use bad form with the muscle imbalance on top of that, and you're iterating another muscle imbalance under extreme stress of a joint that's hyperflexed or hyperextended, it's just a recipe for disaster. All right, so I'm rambling again. You have strength endurance training, muscular development training, and endurance training. Because what you're doing is you're circuiting a strength exercise followed by a balance exercise. So it's kind of a happy medium between stability and strength, and most people don't have a lot of stability. But strength, obviously you need strength to build your muscles and get stronger. I will have a series on each one of these phases and progressions, regressions, etc. Muscular development training is what most people do. You sit on a machine, you push weight until failure, and then you wait, and then you do it all over again. It's pretty self-explanatory. Maximal strength training is almost like powerlifting. You're getting into the power phase. It's lifting 1 to 5 reps, heavy as you can. I typically do not have clients anywhere near here because there's no reason for them to do that unless they're planning for a powerlifting competition. It's the pressure's too extreme on their joints. They have increased chance of injury, popping a tendon, popping a ligament, popping a muscle. It's really only for advanced people who want to possibly get stronger to see what their max, 1 rep max is. If you're trying to get in shape, if you're trying to feel good, be functional, powerlifting is not necessary. It is absolutely not necessary. What you're looking to do is get your body functional and out of pain, no muscle imbalances, and build upon that. And I'll usually have clients cycle through here, through these phases right here. They don't need to go into power training. Power training is more athletic training. It's good for your heart rate. It's good for your it's good for fast twitch muscle fibers. Get things firing. I'll take very few clients into this one, just because it's elastic equivalent training. That's maximal power training. Just because there's an increased chance of injury with your joints and or your muscles by going through power training. But power training is like reactive training, like plyometrics, burpees, squat jumps, stuff like that. But what I focus primarily on with my clients is these lower phases here, and just because unless you're an athlete, boom, stick you there the entire time once you've gone through this whole pyramid. Now, once you've gone through the whole pyramid, say for example you did power training, what you do then is you cycle right back down and you do progressions. So if you started in stability training with 1 foot, 1 foot chest press, 1 foot row, 1 foot shoulder press, for example, and you got good at it, you cycle through it. Now you're using a different modality. Maybe you're doing 1 foot and 1 leg, 1 foot, 1 leg, 1 foot, 1 arm, sorry, or you're doing 1 foot on a Bosu board, or another progression. And what that does is, reason why that is because every 3 to 4 weeks, your body plateaus out on any given exercise. What a plateau is your body adapts based off the set principle, right? Specific adaptation to impose demand. So your body's getting used to it, it's getting more efficient at doing it, you're not burning as many calories, and the exercise is getting easy for you. So one progression, hopefully you guys got all of this, I'm going to erase it. One progression is to increase weights, and that's fine. Increasing weight, and how much weight you're pushing, and that is a good way to see and determine how strong you're getting. Another progression is in stability training is, like I said before, a Bosu board, balance board, making things less stable, right? And what happens is your body adapts, utilizes more muscle fibers. And I forgot to mention, that's one of the good things about doing these different phases is that each phase also helps adapt new muscle fibers. When you're doing like a simple bench press and all you've done is strength training all your life, or squats, or just normal stable environment stuff, you're only potentially utilizing maybe 50 to 75% of the muscles that you have, muscle fibers that you have. You can't build more muscle fibers because you can be the size of the house. The only thing you can do is adapt the muscle fibers that you have right now. The easiest way to adapt new muscle fibers is stability training. force your CNS to figure out, hey, I got other muscles to use, and I'm not using 100% of this muscle group. And it kind of tricks your brain into finding more muscles to fire, more muscle fibers, I should say, to fire. All right. Progressions for strength obviously is increasing weight. Also, different exercises. So instead of just a bench press, you're doing incline bench press, you're doing decline bench press. Maybe you go into flies. Different modalities, different exercises that replicate the same movement of getting your insertion point as close as possible to your origin point. Progressions for power training is possibly time-based, so how fast you can do a certain movement, how quickly you can do it, and if you're into powerlifting, you know how much, what your one rep max is.